Welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're shifting gears a little bit.
A lot, I'd say.
Yeah, you're right, a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
usually we're looking outward,
Yeah.
at tech monopolies, geopolitical shifts.
The mechanics of the modern world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But today we are looking inward. And when I say inward, I don't mean, mindfulness app inward.
No, this is something else entirely.
This is a journey back to the absolute roots of Western spirituality.
Yeah.
To a version of Christianity that was, for all intents and purposes, lost.
Or hidden.
Hidden, yeah. The source material actually uses the word forgotten.
It does. And it's not forgotten the way you forget your keys. It's forgotten like an entire civilization buried under the sand.
And we are basing this whole deep dive on a really fascinating, incredibly dense, and frankly, mind-bending text. It's a collection of works by G.R.S. Mead, but specifically his book, The Living Gnosis of Early Christianity.
Right.
Now, before we get into the really heavy stuff, we have to talk about Mead himself. Because when I first saw the title, my first thought was, okay, is this some modern New Age blog post?
Yeah.
But this guy was a serious heavyweight, wasn't he?
Oh, absolutely. G.R.S. Mead was a scholar's scholar. I mean, this was not a guy sitting around just guessing at things.
No.
He was translating Coptic and Greek manuscripts at a time when most people in the West didn't even know they existed. He's probably most famous for his translation of the Pistis Sophia.
Which is a huge text in Gnosticism.
It's arguably the most important Gnostic text we have, outside of maybe the Nag Hammadi library. And his whole life's mission, you could almost see him as a kind of archaeologist of the soul.
I like that. An archaeologist of the soul.
Yeah. He wanted to dig through all the layers of dogma, the rituals, the centuries of church politics, to find what he called the internal nucleus of the tradition.
That phrase really stuck with me, the internal nucleus. It implies that everything we see today, the cathedrals, the sermons, Sunday school, that's all just the shell.
Right.
And maybe, just maybe, the shell is empty.
Well, that's the central tension of this whole deep dive, isn't it? Mead's entire thesis is that true original Christianity, it was never intended to be a religion in the way we think of religion today.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, it wasn't about signing up for a set of beliefs or just agreeing that a specific series of historical events happened 2,000 years ago. He argues it was originally designed as a mystery school.
A mystery? Okay, stop there, because when I hear that phrase, mystery school, I think of, I don't know, Dan Brown novels.
Right.
Or maybe ancient Egypt secret societies. It sounds almost fictional.
It sounds cinematic, doesn't it? But historically, these were very real institutions.
Like Eleusis.
Exactly, Eleusis in Greece, schools of Isis in Egypt. These were places that were designed for one very specific purpose, direct illumination.
Gnosis.
The Greek word is gnosis. And the goal wasn't salvation in the sense we usually think of it. You know, like a courtroom drama where you broke the law, but the judge forgives you.
Right, no part.
It wasn't about being pardoned. The goal was transmutation.
Transmutation, that's an alchemy term.
It's
Like turning lead into gold.
Exactly. But in this case, it was about turning a human being into a divine being.
Okay. That is a massive claim. And I want to play the skeptic here for a second.
Please.
Because if the original goal of this whole enterprise was to turn human beings into God's, literally, transmutation, how on earth did we end up with a religion that is mostly about, being a nice person and believing in something that happened a long time ago?
That is the tragedy that Mead is trying to uncover.
Yeah.
He argues that somewhere along the line, we traded the living gnosis for what is essentially a history lesson. And to understand how that happened, and more importantly, how Mead thinks we can get it back, we have to start with his first major concept. The outline for our discussion calls it the religion of the mind.
Right. And I have to be honest, when I read that chapter titled The Religion of the Mind, I rolled my eyes a little.
I get that.
I mean, we live in the 21st century. We are obsessed with mind.
Right.
We have data, algorithms, logic, science.
Yeah.
If gnosis is just a religion of the mind, then you could argue we're the most Gnostic society in history, right?
And that is the modern error. That is precisely the trap that Mead warns against.
Okay.
And it's the trap that the modern West has fallen into head first. We hear the word mind, and we immediately think of the gray matter inside the skull.
The brain.
The brain, the thing that does algebra, worries about the mortgage, and memorizes trivia for quiz night.
The calculator.
Exactly, the biological calculator. But Mead is a classical scholar. He's deep in the Greek. He knows that when these ancient Gnostics wrote the word mind, they weren't using the word for intellect, which is dianoia. They were using a different word.
And that word is nous.
Nous.
N-O-U-S.
Correct. And nous is, well, it's frustratingly difficult to translate into English because we don't really have a concept for it anymore. Okay, think of it this way. Your intellect, your brain, is like a flashlight. You point it at things. A math problem, a grocery list, a philosophical argument.
And it illuminates them one by one.
One by one, it dissects things, it analyzes, it breaks them down to understand the parts.
Okay, so the intellect is analytical. It cuts things up.
Right. But nous, the divine mind, it isn't a flashlight.
What is it?
It's the sun.
The sun.
It doesn't look at things. It illuminates the whole landscape at once. It's a form of immediate, direct intuition, but raised to a cosmic scale. When Mead talks about the religion of the mind, he's talking about the religion of the divine spirit.
So he's not saying we need to think harder.
No.
He's saying we need to switch the very instrument of perception.
Precisely. He's talking about bypassing the brain. In the source text, he explicitly links nous to another concept, gnosis cardias.
Gnosis cardias, knowledge of the heart.
Knowledge of the heart.
Now, again, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second. In our culture, following your heart usually means, it means do what feels good. It's emotional. It's sentimental. You know, my brain says I should save money, but my heart says I should buy the boat.
Right. We see it as the seat of emotion and the brain as the seat of intelligence.
Yeah.
But for Mead and for the ancient Gnostics, the heart was a cognitive organ. It was the seat of a specific kind of vision that is actually superior to the brain's vision.
Cognitive organ. So it's another way of knowing.
A higher way. There's a line he cites from the Gospel of Truth, one of the Nag Hammadi texts. It says, "The Father discovers his bosom, which is the Holy Spirit, revealing his hidden."
That's very poetic. But what does it mean in practical terms?
The implication is that this heart knowledge, this gnosis cardias, is a mechanism for seeing the fundamental structure of reality that the brain simply cannot process. Because the brain deals in dualities. Hot and cold, good and bad, me and you. The newness, the heart, it sees the unity behind all of that. It's like trying to download the entire internet onto an old pocket calculator.
I can't hold it.
The brain can't hold it, it will crash. But the heart, the nous, can hold the infinite.
So if you can activate this nous, if you can somehow switch from the flashlight to the sun, that is gnosis.
That is the beginning of gnosis. But Mead goes even further. He defines gnosis with a very specific and frankly, a slightly terrifying word.
Which is?
Apotheosis.
Apotheosis, I know that word. It means deification, right?
It literally means becoming God.
So gnosis isn't knowing about God. It's not memorizing scripture verses or theological arguments.
No. It is the active, ongoing process of becoming divine. Mead is crystal clear on this. Gnosis is not a theory. It is a virtue of the soul. It's an experience of direct vision. To use a biological metaphor, the average human being is a caterpillar. And the intellect, the church, the rituals, that's all about being a really, really good caterpillar. Maybe the best caterpillar on the leaf.
But you're still a bug.
You're still a bug. Gnosis is the process of liquefying that caterpillar self to become a butterfly. It's a mutation of the species.
It's transmutation.
It's transmutation.
Wow. I mean, this really sets the stakes for the entire conversation. We aren't talking about self-improvement here.
Not at all.
We're talking about a fundamental shift in what a human being is. And this leads us directly into the second big idea in the outline. Because if the goal is to become divine, it completely changes how you have to view the central figure of Christianity.
It does. It changes how you view Christ.
The living Christ versus the historical Christ. And this is probably the most controversial part of Mead's work for an Orthodox believer.
I would agree. It's a huge departure.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if I go to almost any church in the world this Sunday, the sermon is going to be about a historical timeline. Jesus of Nazareth, born in Bethlehem, lived for 33 years, died under Pontius Pilate. It's a history lesson. It's all about believing that a specific event happened in the past.
Right, and that is the historical Christ. It's an external fact. You believe in it the same way you believe that's a Caesar crossed the Rubicon.
Sure.
But Mead argues that for the Gnostics, the historical man, Jesus, was just the catalyst. He was just the starting point. He uses this incredible metaphor. He says Jesus was the flame.
Okay, the flame.
But gnosis is the fire.
Explain that difference, the flame versus the fire.
Well, a flame is a single point of light. It's located in one place at one time. Jesus, the man, was the flame. He brought the light into the world, into history.
Yeah.
But the purpose of a flame isn't just to be admired. You don't just stare at a match and say, wow, look at that incredible fire.
No, you use it to light something.
You use the match to light a candle, and then you use that candle to light another, and another, and another.
The fire spreads.
The fire must be kindled in everyone. The Gnostic view is that the living Christ is not a man who died 2,000 years ago on a cross. It is a presence, a spiritual principle that exists now.
In the present moment.
Yes, right now, in the silence, waiting to be contacted. If you just worship the historical flame, you're missing the entire point. The point is to catch fire yourself.
So salvation isn't about looking back at the cross as a historical event.
No.
It's about igniting that fire inside your own heart today.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this is what leads to what Mead calls the universalism of the living Christ. And this is the part of the text that threw me a curveball that I absolutely did not see coming.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I had to reread this section 3 times to make sure I was understanding it.
It's pretty shocking.
We're reading a text on early Christian mysticism, and all of a sudden, Mead starts dropping names like Charles Darwin.
Right. And Thomas Huxley?
Darwin's bulldog.
Exactly.
Thomas Huxley, the man who literally invented the word agnostic. The man who spent his entire life debating bishops and arguing for a materialist scientific view of the universe. In most Christian narratives, these guys are. They're the villains.
They are the enemies of faith.
But Mead claims they're actually being driven by the living Christ. What is going on there?
It sounds absurd at first glance, doesn't it? But if you follow his logic, it's actually one of the most brilliant and consistent parts of his argument.
Okay, walk me through it.
Mead makes a critical separation between theology and truth. He argues that the living Christ is the logos. It's the divine reason, the ordering principle of the cosmos. It is the force of evolution itself.
The impulse towards what?
Towards greater consciousness, greater truth, greater clarity.
So because Darwin was seeking the truth about our biological origins, even if that truth completely contradicted the book of Genesis,
he was doing the work of the logos. Even if Darwin called himself an agnostic, his action, his relentless drive to strip away illusion, to shatter old dogmas, to see nature as it really is, that, for Mead, was a profoundly spiritual act.
Wow.
Mead says, and this is a direct quote, "The Christ aids all who strive for truth." He doesn't check your religious membership card first.
That is radically inclusive. It effectively says that an atheist scientist looking through a microscope with total integrity might be closer to the living Christ than a theologian who is just sitting in a library defending a dogma he doesn't truly understand.
If the scientist is pursuing truth with integrity, yes, absolutely. Mead uses this analogy of the plant man.
The plant man.
He says all of humanity is a single plant. The divine gardener, who is the living Christ, cares for the whole plant. He waters the roots. He ensures it grows toward the sun.
Okay.
He doesn't care about the pot the plant happens to be growing in. And the pot is your religion. You can be in a Christian pot, a Buddhist pot, a Zoroastrian pot, an atheist scientist pot.
The gardener only cares about the fruit.
Is the plant healthy? Is it evolving? Is it reaching for the light? That's all that matters.
That puts a whole new spin on the concept of salvation. It's not about joining the right club or getting the password correct.
It's about growth. It's about engaging in a present transformation. If Christ is a living principle, then here it's the force pushing you to evolve right now, in this moment. It completely dissolves the faith versus science debate.
It really does. It frames science not as an enemy of religion, but as a different form of revelation.
A different language for describing the same reality.
But this idea of a universal wisdom tradition, this leads us into another area that was, historically speaking, scandalous. I mean, people were literally burned at the stake for making these kinds of connections.
Yes, they were.
We have to talk about the pagan link.
The great scandal, the connection to Hermes.
The source material brings up Hermes Trismegistus. Now, for those listening who might not know, Hermes is usually associated with Greek mythology, Egyptian magic, alchemy.
God of wisdom, Hoth.
Right. He's the patron of magicians. He's definitely not in the King James Bible. But Mead is saying there's a deep, fundamental connection.
A profound one. And this isn't Mead just, speculating wildly. He's pointing to the historical fact. The earliest Christians, we're talking before the Orthodox Church, really clamped down and standardized everything. They read the books of Hermes.
They did.
Yes. They didn't see them as devil worship or some kind of pagan corruption. They considered them a preparation for Christ.
So it wasn't burn the pagan books. It was more like read the prequel before you watch the main movie.
That's a great way to put it. Exactly. Mead argues that the core philosophy, that gnosis of the mind we talked about earlier, is identical in both traditions.
Really identical.
He points to a specific text called the Poimandres. It's the foundational text of Hermeticism. And the name Poimandres literally means the shepherd of men.
The shepherd, well, okay. That image is everywhere in Christianity.
It is the central image. The Good Shepherd is one of the oldest depictions of Jesus we have from the catacombs in Rome.
So Mead is showing us that this imagery and the whole philosophy behind it was shared.
It was in the air they were breathing. The shepherd in the Hermetic text is the divine mind, the gnosis, that guides the individual soul back to its source. The Good Shepherd in Christianity is the Savior who guides the soul to salvation. Mead is saying they're talking about the exact same reality, just using slightly different language.
So Christianity didn't just appear out of thin air in a vacuum. It wasn't like a UFO landed in Judea and dropped off a brand new religion.
No. And that's a crucial point of this entire deep dive. Mead presents Christianity as the heir to the great mystery schools of Egypt and Greece. It was meant to be the true philosophy that synthesized and fulfilled all that ancient wisdom.
It was supposed to be the software update.
Yes. The update that integrated all the previous operating systems, the Egyptian mysteries, Greek philosophy, Jewish prophecy.
But instead of an update, we got a reformatting of the hard drive.
We got a purge. The later church, for a variety of political and social reasons, decided to delete the old files. They tried to sever the connection to the so-called pagan wisdom. They insisted, no, we are unique. We are a singular revelation. We have nothing to do with those Egyptians or those Greeks.
And in Mead's view, what did that do to Christianity?
It stranded it. It isolated it from its own roots. It turned it from a deep wisdom tradition into a much shallower belief system.
It became about believing the history rather than knowing the mystery.
You've got it. Exactly. And that brings us right back to the central problem. If we have lost the mystery, if we've lost the instruction manual for transmutation, then how do we get it back?
This is the practical question, right?
Yeah.
Let's say I'm listening to this right now and I'm thinking, okay, I get it. I want to fire. I'm tired of just looking at the historical flame. I want to move from belief to knowing. How? Does Mead give us a method, a practice?
He does, but I have to warn you, it's not easy.
Yes.
It's incredibly simple, but it might be the hardest thing a modern human being can possibly do. He calls it the technique of silence.
The technique of silence.
Mead quotes one of the Gnostic texts directly. It says, "The gnosis is the sacred silence, giving rest to all the senses."
Giving rest to all the senses. That sounds peaceful, almost relaxing.
It sounds peaceful, but think about what it actually means. In our world, our senses are under constant assault. Notifications, billboards, music, podcasts, ironically. We are addicted to sensory input. Mead explains that the path to gnosis isn't about spoken prayer. It's not about asking God for a new car or for your team to win the championship.
No.
It is a deep, profound meditation where one literally shuts down the body.
Shutting down the body, that sounds intense.
It is. The idea is that you have to turn off the input from the eyes and ears in order to finally see with the heart. The text says the eyes of the body are just windows, or in some translations, even veils. Yes, they show us the surface of things. They show us separation. I am here, the table is there, you are over there. As long as your physical eyes are processing data, you are fundamentally trapped in the illusion of separation.
So to see the underlying reality, the unity,
Yeah.
you have to literally pull the plug on the video feed.
You have to pull the plug. That's why the Gnostics called this process a mystic death. You are voluntarily inducing a state where the physical world disappears so that what they call the eyes of the heart can finally open.
This brings us to a section of the notes that I found really dense, but I feel like we have to tackle it because it seems to explain what happens in that silence. Mead starts using Sanskrit terms.
Yes. This is where Mead the scholar really shines. He sees these incredible parallels between this Gnostic Christian experience and the deep meditative states described in Buddhist and Hindu philosophy. He talks about the robes of the master.
The robes?
Akayas in Sanskrit.
Okay, let's break this down because this feels like the technical manual for the soul. He mentions 3 of them: Nirmanakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Dharmakaya.
Right. Think of these as different frequencies of reality. Or maybe like different lenses through which you can perceive the divine. It's all the same light, but the lens determines how you see it.
Okay, start with the first one, Nirmanakaya.
The Nirmanakaya is the transformation body, or the emanation body. This is the robe the master wears when he needs to appear to us in the physical, historical world. It's the teacher you can see and touch and hear.
So Jesus of Nazareth walking by the Sea of Galilee.
That's the Nirmanakaya. It's the flame. It is limited by time and space. It's the form the divine takes to be relatable to us in our normal state of consciousness.
Okay. The user interface.
Exactly.
Right.
But if you are in the silence, if you have successfully shut down your physical senses, you can't see the Nirmanakaya anymore. It's gone.
So what do you see?
You shift to the next level of perception. You begin to perceive the Samogakaya,
Which
the enjoyment body, or the bliss body. This is a subtle, energetic form. It's what people experience in deep prayer or in those moments of overwhelming awe and wonder.
like a feeling of a presence in the room.
Exactly. It's that sense of a presence. It's not solid. You can't shake its hand, but it's undeniably real. It communicates not through words, but through feeling, through vibration, through light. This is the Christ in you, the inner flame.
So the Nirmanakaya is the master outside of you. The Samokakaya is the master felt inside you.
Yes, but there is one more step. The highest level. The Dharmakaya.
The truth body.
The body of the law. This is the ultimate reality. In the Dharmakaya, the master doesn't have a form. He is the formless universe. He is the silence itself, the fabric of reality.
And to experience that.
To wear this robe, to experience reality on this level, you have to lose your own form. Your own sense of self has to dissolve completely.
And Mead's argument is that the living Christ wears all three of these robes simultaneously.
Yes. The master is always the Dharmakaya, always the ultimate truth. But he puts on the bliss body or the physical body, depending on the level of the student. It depends on what you are capable of seeing.
If you are stuck in your physical senses, you only see the man.
Right.
If you enter the silence, you feel the bliss. And if you become the silence,
You merge with the truth. You become what the Gnostics called the pleroma, the fullness, the all.
And this leads us to the absolute climax of Mead's entire argument. Because if we can merge with the truth body, if we can dissolve into the divine, what does that make us?
This is the chapter Mead calls heirs of the ages. And this is where he drops the hammer. This is the great secret.
The secret that gets you in a lot of trouble throughout history.
It does.
Ye are gods.
Ye are gods.
Now, wait, I have to stop you there. Because that sounds incredibly arrogant. I look in the mirror and I don't see a god. I see a guy who needs a haircut, who gets tired, who gets irritable when he's hungry. If I walk around telling people I am a god, they're going to lock me up.
And they absolutely should if you say it from the ego, from that guy in the mirror.
Yeah.
But Mead isn't talking about the ego at all. He's talking about what he calls the great amnesia.
Amnesia.
Yes. Mead describes the human soul not as a miserable sinner, but as an exile, a royal exile. He calls us heirs of the eons. Now, in Gnosticism, an eon isn't just a long period of time, it's a divine power, a cosmic entity. He's saying that at our core, we are eternal divine entities who have somehow fallen into time and forgotten our own names.
So the spiritual path isn't about becoming something new.
No.
It's about remembering something ancient that we've forgotten.
Exactly. The Greek word for truth is aletheia. It literally means unforgetting or unconcealing. Gnosis is anamnesis. It is remembrance. Mead uses this powerful analogy of a king who has been hit on the head, developed amnesia, and now believes he's a beggar.
The beggar king.
Right. He's wandering the streets of his own city begging for scraps. He begs for a little bit of money, a little bit of fame, a little bit of love. He thinks his value comes from what other people give him.
He has no idea he owns the whole kingdom.
None. And the church, in Mead's critical view, the corrupted, exoteric church is like a soup kitchen for the beggar. It says, oh, you poor thing, here's some soup. Now try to be a good beggar. Follow the rules of the homeless shelter. It comforts the beggar in his poverty, but it never tells him he's the king.
But Gnosis.
Gnosis grabs the beggar by the shoulders, shakes him, and says, wake up. You own the entire kingdom. Stop begging for scraps.
That reframes everything. It even reframes the scriptures themselves. Take one of the most famous Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor.
Blessed are the poor in spirit. Yes.
Usually we hear that as a call to social justice or as a comfort to the financially downtrodden. And that's a perfectly valid reading on one level.
It is. But Mead argues the mystical Gnostic meaning is much deeper.
It's about the beggar king.
It's about the king choosing to become the beggar voluntarily. Blessed are the poor means blessed are those who have emptied themselves. You have to empty yourself of the ego, of your opinions, of your accumulated riches of intellectual pride. If you are full of yourself, there is no room for the gnosis to enter.
So you have to become poor, you have to enter the silence, shut down the senses to receive the kingdom.
And the kingdom isn't a place you go to when you die. It is the sovereignty of the self. Mead quotes that famous Gnostic maxim found at the Temple of Delphi. Know thyself, and thou shalt be king.
Know thyself, and thou shalt be king. Not a servant, not a subject, a king.
This is the ultimate transmutation. The little man, the personality, the ego, the beggar dies in the silence. And the great man, the cosmic man, the inner Christ, the king, wakes up.
It completely changes the whole religious experience from, say, a legal system where I'm a guilty criminal and I need a lawyer to get me off, to a medical or an alchemical process.
Exactly. We aren't guilty. We are asleep. We don't need a judge. We need a wake-up call. We don't need forgiveness. We need a cure for our blindness. We need the gnosis.
So as we start to pull all these threads together, it's a huge arc. We've gone from the error of thinking gnosis is just smart thoughts,
Right.
to understanding the living Christ as a present universal fire, to seeing the connection with the ancient pagan mysteries, and finally to this absolutely radical realization that we are sleeping gods suffering from a case of cosmic amnesia.
It's a massive journey. It's the hero's journey, really.
It really is. And Mead, towards the end, he differentiates between faith and gnosis in a way that I think is really helpful for anyone listening to wrap their head around this. Because a lot of people listening might have faith, and they might feel like this whole conversation is an attack on that.
No, and Mead is very careful there. He doesn't dismiss faith at all. He says faith is for beginners.
Beginners in what sense?
He says it's a willed belief. It's the map. Before you start a dangerous journey into an unknown forest, you have to have faith in the map. If you don't believe the map that says there's treasure at the end, you'll never even leave the house.
But you shouldn't stay at home just staring at the map forever.
Exactly. You can't live on the map. You have to actually walk the terrain. Gnosis is for the mature soul. It's the direct experience of the terrain itself. The Gnostic doesn't believe in God. The Gnostic knows God because they have touched that fire in the silence.
It's the difference between reading a menu and actually eating the meal.
That's a perfect analogy.
You can memorize the entire menu. You can argue with people about the font used on the menu. You could even start a war over which menu is the correct one. But none of that is going to fill your stomach.
None of it. And so Mead's challenge to the reader, and I guess our challenge to you listening today is, are you hungry enough to stop reading the menu?
That is the question. Are you ready to stop believing and start knowing?
It's a scary question because belief is safe. Belief gives you community, it gives you rules, it gives you a nice predictable structure. Knowing, gnosis. That's the wild, that's the desert, that's the silence where you have to face yourself with no one else around.
But the reward, according to Mead, is becoming an heir of the ages.
The reward is reality.
Yeah.
Absolute, undiluted, unfiltered reality.
You know, it really strikes me why this text, even though it's over a century old and it's discussing texts that are 2,000 years old, it feels so incredibly relevant right now.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I feel like we are in a profound crisis of meaning. People have the internet. They have all the intellectual knowledge in the world at their fingertips. We are drowning in information.
Drowning in data.
But we feel empty. We feel isolated.
Yeah.
And this idea that there is a living gnosis, a direct, unmediated connection that doesn't require a priest or a book or an institution, just you in the silence. I think people are starving for that.
I agree completely. We are drowning in information but starving for wisdom. And Mead offers a path that honors the intellect. Remember, he doesn't want you to be stupid. He was a brilliant scholar, but it ultimately transcends the intellect. It says, use your mind, but then you have to go beyond your mind.
The religion of the mind that goes beyond the brain.
Exactly.
Before we sign off, I just want to leave our listeners with one final provocative thought from the source material. It's something we touched on, but I want to let it really sink in. Mead suggests that the master is ultimately a collective reality.
Yes. This is the final dissolution of the illusion of separation.
If we are all heirs of the ages, if that divine fire is potentially in all of us, then the separation between you and me, and even the separation between us and God, is the ultimate illusion.
That is the final barrier to be burned away by the fire of gnosis. If the cosmic man is in you and the cosmic man is in me, then in the deep silence there is no us. There is only the one. The master isn't just a teacher of the class. The master is the entire class, fully awakened.
And finding that isn't about going to a special building on a Sunday. It's about finding that sacred silence right where you are, right now.
Know thyself and thou shalt be king.
I think I'm going to need some silence after this conversation just to process all that.
I think we both do.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the living gnosis. It's been a trip. We'll see you next time.
Seek the light.